Hello everyone, welcome back this channel.
Right now, I want to bring all of you to understand the U.S.-Venezuela confrontation, drug trafficking, power, and geopolitics. In 2025, tensions between the United States and Venezuela reached their highest point in years, following Washington's renewed accusations that President Nicolás Maduro and senior Venezuelan officials were involved in international drug trafficking. Especially in the end of October and earlier of November 2025, the problem is getting worse. It's almost like war is breaking out. U.S. President Donald Trump announced the deployment of naval forces to the Caribbean Sea and authorized covert intelligence operations aimed at dismantling narcotics networks allegedly operating under Venezuelan protection. The situation has drawn international attention because it mixes the fight against drug smuggling with high-stakes geopolitics, questions of sovereignty, and fears of regime change motives. The unfolding confrontation has become one of the most significant flashpoints in Latin America, symbolizing the intersection between security concerns and political power. The roots of the conflict lie in Washington's long-standing belief that Venezuela has become a major transit hub for cocaine and other illegal substances produced in South America. While Colombia remains the largest source of cocaine, U.S. agencies claim that Venezuelan ports, coastal waters, and military officials facilitate trafficking toward the Caribbean and North America. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration and Department of Justice have charged several Venezuelan leaders with narcotics-related crimes, describing the Maduro administration as a narco regime. These allegations led to a series of punitive measures, including economic sanctions and multi-million-dollar rewards for information leading to the capture of top Venezuelan officials. In mid-2025, President Trump escalated the campaign by sending warships, destroyers, and surveillance aircraft to the Caribbean region, officially under the banner of counter-narcotics operations. The deployment, involving thousands of U.S. troops, was one of the largest U.S. military movements in the Western Hemisphere in decades. American officials insisted the goal was to intercept drug smuggling vessels and disrupt trafficking networks. However, critics and many international observers suspected broader motives, namely pressuring or removing the Maduro government, which Washington has long viewed as illegitimate. Maduro's response was immediate and defiant. Venezuela mobilized its own navy, deployed drones, and strengthened its coastal defenses, declaring that the U.S. actions violated international law and national sovereignty. The Venezuelan president accused the Trump administration of using the drug war as a pretext for imperial aggression. Domestically, Maduro used the confrontation to rally nationalist support, portraying himself as a defender of independence against foreign intervention. The rhetoric on both sides grew increasingly aggressive, with Trump authorizing the CIA to conduct covert operations inside Venezuela, and with unconfirmed reports of U.S. special units and FBI agents assisting regional intelligence services in neighboring Caribbean islands. Amid this escalation, several incidents heightened tensions. U.S. forces reportedly struck vessels suspected of smuggling drugs from Venezuelan waters, killing several individuals. These actions provoked outrage in Caracas and condemnation from neutral observers who feared a slide toward open conflict. International organizations, including the United Nations and the Organization of American States, called for restraint, urging both nations to prioritize diplomacy over confrontation. Nevertheless, the standoff persisted, exposing deeper questions about the limits of U.S. power, the nature of Venezuelan governments, and the blurred line between anti-narcotics policy and political intervention. Here's a detailed breakdown of the situation involving Venezuela, drugs, and the U.S., drawing on current reporting. 1. The accusations against Venezuela. The U.S. government under Donald Trump has increasingly portrayed Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his government as complicit in major drug trafficking networks. Al Jazeera +1. One of the specific claims is that Venezuelan territory, coastal waters, Caribbean routes, border zones, is being used to transit illicit narcotics toward the U.S. or into hemispheric markets. Al Jazeera +2, Al Jazeera +2. The U.S. has designated some Venezuelan criminal groups, for example the group known as Tren de Aragua, as narco-terrorist organizations and increased pressure accordingly. Wikipedia. 2. U.S. military and intelligence escalation. The U.S. has deployed significant naval and aerial assets to the Caribbean Sea region near or adjacent to Venezuela's coastline, citing counter-narcotics operations. For example, 3 destroyers, a cruiser, fast attack submarine, thousands of troops and Marines. The Washington Post +2, Military.com +2. The U.S. has also carried out strikes, air or sea, against vessels alleged to be drug smuggling boats operating in or from Venezuelan adjacent waters. One report, a boat struck, reportedly from Venezuela, killing 11 people. Wikipedia +1. President Trump confirmed or acknowledged that the CIA is authorized to conduct covert operations inside Venezuela. AP News +1. 3. Venezuela's response. Maduro and Venezuelan officials strongly deny the claims of running a narco state and insist they are fighting drug trafficking. For example, Venezuela announced deployment of its own military vessels and troops to coastal and border zones to combat traffickers. AP News +1. They have accused the U.S. of imperialism, regime change motives, and violating Venezuelan sovereignty. Maduro warned he would declare a republic in arms if the U.S. attacked. CBS News +1. 4. What's new? Major escalations. The U.S. doubled the reward for information leading to the capture or prosecution of Maduro and other senior Venezuelan officials on drug trafficking charges. Al Jazeera +1. The U.S. deployment of warships and troops is described as large. Some sources say 4,000+ troops and multiple ships. Military.com +1. There are concerns and criticisms about legality. For example, strikes on vessels without due process, whether U.S. military force in this way is covered by international law, whether the designation of narco-traffickers equals enemy combatants is valid. Al Jazeera +1. 5. Key points of controversy. Regime change versus counter-narcotics. The U.S. claims the mission is purely to stop drug flows. Trump has publicly denied the objective is regime change, time +1. But Venezuelan authorities say the U.S. intent is to remove Maduro. Sovereignty and international law. Venezuela argues its territorial integrity is under threat. Some analysts question whether the U.S. is acting within its self-defense or law enforcement boundaries when using military force or covert ops abroad. Al Jazeera +1. Evidence transparency. The U.S. has not always publicly shared detailed evidence linking Venezuelan state actors to specific shipments. Some reporting notes this gap. AP News +1. 6. Motivations and implications. For the U.S., stopping drug flows, especially synthetic drugs and fentanyl, is a declared priority. The U.S. sees the problem as a national security threat, not just crime. By linking state actors, Venezuela, to trafficking, they justify more aggressive tools. For Venezuela, Maduro uses the U.S. pressure as a rallying cry, claiming external threat and sovereignty violation, which helps consolidate domestic support among loyalists. Regional stability. The buildup of military assets and threats raises risk of escalation, unintended clashes at sea, diplomatic breakdowns, potential for miscalculation. Also, increased militarization could undermine drug trafficking flows in unpredictable ways.
7. Specific deployment to a Caribbean island and FBI deployment. I could not find reliable publicly reported information verifying the specific claim that the U.S. has deployed troops to a Caribbean island for the explicit purpose of catching Maduro, or that the FBI has been sent into a Venezuelan city for that purpose, at least not in major open-source reports to date. What is clear, U.S. naval assets, ships, and some troops are in the southern Caribbean waters near Venezuela, and the CIA has been authorized to operate inside Venezuela. But direct, large-scale land troop operations on a Caribbean island under U.S. control, or FBI deployment into Venezuelan cities, has not been clearly documented in major trustworthy sources as of the latest reporting. It is possible that smaller covert deployments exist, or that parts of the story are still classified or unreported. But based on available data, the broader claim should be treated with caution. 8. Timeline snapshot. August 2025, U.S. sends warships to Caribbean region near Venezuela. Venezuelan government responds by deploying vessels and drones. Al Jazeera +1. September 2025. First U.S. airstrike reported against a vessel alleged to be Venezuelan-linked, killing 11. Venezuela accuses U.S. of undeclared war. Wikipedia +1. October 2025. Trump confirms CIA covert operations inside Venezuela. U.S. military buildup continues. Venezuela warns of Republic in Arms. AP News +1. The 2025 U.S.-Venezuelan standoff over alleged drug trafficking reveals the complexity of modern geopolitics, where security objectives and political ambitions often intertwine. Especially in the end of October and earlier of November 2025, the problem is getting worse. It's almost like wars breaking out. While Washington insists its mission is to combat the international narcotics trade, Venezuela views it as an assault on its sovereignty and an effort to topple its government. The truth likely lies somewhere between these competing narratives. Venezuela's porous institutions and corruption have enabled trafficking, but the U.S. response also serves strategic and ideological purposes. The confrontation highlights the need for transparent evidence, regional cooperation, and respect for international law. Unless both nations choose dialogue over escalation, the so-called drug war in the Caribbean could evolve into a broader conflict with lasting consequences for Latin America's stability and U.S.-Venezuelan relations. Thank you for your watching. Please subscribe to get more videos related to political and economics in the world.